The question appeared, as many unsettling questions do, in the digital twilight of a subreddit. Are human body parts really harvested and sold on the black market? How would that even work? It was a query posted to the Too Afraid to Ask community, and the answers that followed were not mere speculation. They were fragmented whispers from a grim reality, confirming stories of unauthorized surgeries, shadowy organ brokers, and the desperate being scammed out of the promised price for a piece of themselves. This digital breadcrumb led to a global investigation, revealing a world far darker than any urban legend. It led to places like Chennai, a town in southern India grimly nicknamed Kidneyville, where a significant portion of the adult population has sold a kidney. But Chennai is not an anomaly. It is a single node in a vast, interconnected network of desperation that includes Manila in the Philippines, Hoxie in Nepal, Lahore in Pakistan, and countless other communities scattered across the globe. The World Health Organization estimates that up to 10% of all organ transplants performed worldwide are illegal, a shadow economy that generates between $840 million and $1.7 billion annually, built on the flesh of the world's most vulnerable. How did a medical miracle designed to save lives become a thriving billion-dollar industry of human exploitation? To understand the demand that fuels this red market, one must first understand the desperation of waiting. I found out when I was 17, explains Jay, a member of our team. His story begins not with a diagnosis, but with an unquenchable thirst, a classic sign of type 1 diabetes. I stopped into the corner store and grabbed a 2-liter bottle of Coke and drank it in about a block. I had been literally peeing nonstop for about 3 days. The next day, in the doctor's office, the verdict was delivered. His pancreas had stopped working. For years, insulin was his lifeline. But as his condition progressed, a more drastic intervention was needed: dialysis, a grueling process that filters the blood when the kidneys can no longer do so. Dialysis can only keep you alive for so long, Jay recalls. The rest of your system starts to kind of deteriorate. Your heart can't keep up, your liver starts to give, everything starts to sort of implode from the inside out. The ultimate solution was a double transplant of both a kidney and a pancreas. Jay was added to a wait list. In the United States alone, over 100,000 people are on the National Transplant Waiting List, with a new name added every 9 minutes. For many, this wait is a death sentence. Approximately 17 people die each day waiting for an organ that never comes. The global demand is staggering, exacerbated by the rise of diseases of affluence, like diabetes and hypertension, which are leading causes of kidney failure. The system for organ allocation varies. In Canada, where Jay lives, each province maintains its own list. In the US, a patient can join lists in multiple states, but a call for a transplant requires immediate travel. This creates a de facto tiered system. While an average person is limited to their local list, the wealthy can afford to be on multiple, ready to charter a private jet at a moment's notice. It was this strategy that allowed Apple founder Steve Jobs to controversially shorten his wait for a liver transplant from years to months by registering in both his home state of California and in Tennessee. For those without such resources, the wait can feel like a powerless crawl towards the inevitable. It is in this chasm of desperation that the red market thrives. A simple search on social media reveals a stark duality. Groups filled with heartfelt pleas for altruistic donors are infiltrated by profiles from developing nations, stating only a blood type and passport status. They are not people, they are listings, body parts for sale. My name is Scott Carney. I'm an investigative journalist, and I wrote a book called The Red Market. Carney's journey began in a village near his home in India, where an expose revealed that nearly all the women had sold their kidneys. It's not kidnapping people and like slicing out their organs, and they wake up in bathtubs full of ice, he clarifies. The reality is, in most cases, it is very poor and destitute people who are given, the opportunity to make like $500. The economics are brutal. A kidney that a broker buys for $500 from a desperate individual in India might be resold to a wealthy recipient in New York for $160,000. Levi Isaac Rosenbaum, a broker convicted in 2012, facilitated exactly such transactions, arranging the transplants in prestigious Manhattan hospitals. He saw himself not as a criminal, but as a matchmaker. The donor, however, rarely sees their life improve. You're promised like $2,000, but they only give you a little bit up front and then they never pay you the back, Carney explains, based on over 100 interviews. They usually feel ripped off, and it's not enough money to actually radically change their life. This raises a profound ethical question. Does bodily autonomy grant an individual the right to sell parts of themselves? Proponents of a regulated market argue it could eliminate the black market and save lives, pointing to Iran, the only country with a legal state-controlled system for kidney sales. There, the government pays donors a set fee, and there is virtually no waiting list for kidneys. However, studies have shown that the majority of Iranian donors are from the lowest socioeconomic classes, and many suffer from long-term health and psychological issues. Critics argue this model inevitably leads to the commodification of the human body, creating a world where the poor are viewed as a walking collection of spare parts for the rich. It forces us to ask, what is the price of a human life? And more disturbingly, should there be a price tag on the flesh that constitutes it? The horrors of this commodification extend far beyond simple, albeit exploitative, transactions. In Chennai, the wave of kidney sales was a direct result of the 2004 tsunami. Displaced and desperate, people in refugee camps like Tsunami Nagar sold their organs to survive. In Ethiopia, hundreds of Eritrean refugees sold their kidneys to afford passage to Europe, only to be cheated out of their money by brokers. The stories are a global litany of abuse. A crime ring in India luring laborers with false job promises, only to drug them and steal their organs. A Pakistani doctor using the cover of free medical treatment to harvest kidneys with the help of an auto mechanic as an anesthesiologist. But the darkest corner of this market is where the exploitation is not just a crime, but a state-sponsored industry. For nearly 2 decades, allegations have swirled around China regarding systematic, forced organ harvesting from prisoners of conscience. David Matas, an international human rights lawyer nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize for his work on the issue, began investigating after a whistleblower, quote, Ani, revealed in 2006 that her ex-husband, a surgeon in China, had harvested the corneas from over 2,000 practitioners of Falun Gong, a spiritual movement banned by the Chinese government. The victims died through organ extraction, Matis states bluntly. His investigation, co-authored with David Kilgore and detailed in their report Bloody Harvest, uncovered a chilling system. Falun Gong practitioners, held indefinitely in prisons, were subjected to regular blood tests and organ examinations. They were, in effect, a living organ bank. This was happening in a country where voluntary organ donation is culturally taboo. Between 2003 and 2009, China, with a population of 1.3 billion, officially recorded only 130 voluntary donors. Yet during that same period, the number of transplants skyrocketed into the tens of thousands. Hospitals openly advertised short waiting times, weeks, even days, for organs that would take years to find elsewhere. Once a patient showed up, Mattis explains, the practitioner would be taken out of their cell, injected with various drugs, the organs would be extracted, and killed through the organ extraction. The investigation concluded that tens of thousands of transplants were performed with organs from non-consenting Falun Gong practitioners. More recently, this gruesome practice has reportedly shifted to another persecuted group, the Uyghurs, a largely Muslim ethnic group from northwest China. The China Tribunal, an independent panel chaired by Sir Geoffrey Nice, concluded in 2019 that China's actions constituted crimes against humanity, and in 2021, the Uyghur Tribunal declared it a genocide. Despite these findings, most governments have failed to take meaningful action, hiding behind legal technicalities. While these state-sanctioned atrocities represent one extreme, the ethical dilemma for an individual patient remains. For Jay, the call finally came. I get a call on my phone, and that was the call. They're like, "How soon can you get down here?" Waking up after the successful surgery, the first thing he saw was a little bag of urine, which is a sign that the kidney function was working. I've never been so happier to see a bag of pee. His first non-diabetic meal, roast beef, vegetables, potatoes, and apple juice, was a moment of profound liberation that brought him to tears. But this gift of life is weighted by the knowledge of its source. Because I have a deceased donor, that somewhere out there, there's somebody going through the exact opposite. You have literally pieces of them in you. This sense of carrying a memorial to a stranger, a life given at the moment of a life lost, is a sacred trust. It is this altruism that the red market desecrates. Jay is unequivocal about his stance on buying an organ. "I don't think I know I would never be able to support that. I don't want to have that reminder of what they had to go through in order for me to be alive." The best way to combat the black market is to shrink the demand by increasing the legal supply. Becoming a registered organ donor is a simple act that can save up to 8 lives and improve up to 75 more. Yet myths and fears persist, keeping registration rates tragically low in many countries. Looking to the future, science may offer the ultimate solution. In early 2024, a genetically modified pig kidney was successfully transplanted into a human recipient at Massachusetts General Hospital, a landmark achievement in xenotransplantation. Further on the horizon lies the promise of regenerative medicine, 3D bioprinted organs and lab-grown tissues created from a patient's own cells. This technological dawn could one day make the need for donors, and the brutal market that preys on them, obsolete. Until that day, however, the red market will continue to operate at the intersection of medical advancement and global inequality. It will prey on the desperation of the sick and the destitution of the poor. For a person of means who just wants a kidney, no questions asked, anything is possible for a price. And as they lie on a sterilized operating table, it is perhaps too easy to forget that the organ about to save their life may have been stolen from a body in a village where hope was the first thing to be harvested.